Ashley.
And I'm Ethan.
And welcome to Game on Board Game, a channel where we talk about board games and do fun games and challenges based on our love for them.
Today we're going to be introducing a challenge that we'll be doing throughout the course of this entire new year, 2025. We set ourselves the goal of trying to play every single board game in our collection.
So earlier today, in preparation for this video, we created an Excel document where we went through shelf by shelf and wrote down all of the names for our board games. We thought we had them all down, and then we double checked and we had missed them. So it was good that we went through and checked every single game. When we made the initial list, we did include expansions and included different versions of games that we had. That list was over 160 games, almost 170 games, I think, with expansions, right?
That was basically like, if it's a box on our shelves, we wrote it down.
Yes.
Regardless of what category it would fall into as far as like core box, standalone game, expansion, anything like that. But we do have like some caveats about how we're going to try to approach this to make it a little bit more manageable, a little bit more reasonable, and hopefully actually achieve it before the end of the year.
Right.
Yeah. All said and done, once we cut it down, we ended up with 135 games.
Which is still a lot.
Yes. I'm sure some of you watching this will think that that is an outrageous amount of games to have, and for some of you that will be like a drop in the bucket, nothing at all.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We think that that is a pretty reasonable sweet spot, right? That we should roughly be able to do it. That's 10 to 11-ish games per month, which is like 2 to 3 different ones a week.
Right.
Should be able to accomplish it.
Yes, hopefully. So to make the initial trim, we looked at mainly expansions. For Final Girl, for example, we have about 9 Final Girl expansions, right?
Well,
Beyond the core
feature
box.
film boxes, yeah.
The feature film boxes. So we just wrote Final Girl. So as long as we play Final Girl at least once, which honestly we play very often, so we'll probably play it more than once.
Right.
But we don't have to play every single one of them as long as we play Final Girl at least once.
Correct. And that same sort of concept applies to a lot of other
Several
things.
other ones, right.
Games where it's not necessarily like individual expansions, but just like, well, we have like Ark Nova, for example, with the Marine Worlds expansion. For those types of things, I think the rule is just, it's completely at our discretion when we play that game, how much or how little of each expansion we decide to include.
Right.
Right.
Something like Ark Nova, however, Marine World is just in our main box, so that's going to get played anyway.
That one's just a default for us. Like, there's no reason that we wouldn't include it. But some expansions have like multiple mini modules that you can like pick and choose like how much you want to do. We're just going to take that as it comes, kind of like fly by the seat of our pants, whatever we're in the mood for at the time.
Yeah, as long as we play a version of it. Something like Dead of Winter, we have Dead of Winter and Dead of Winter the Long Night, so we just put it Dead of Winter as long as we play one of those. Again, that's another one we play often, so maybe we'll play both, but we want to play at least one.
That's kind of a different example though, right? Ark Nova and Marine Worlds, like Marine World is literally like an expansion to that game, requires the base game. Standalone expansions, we took a bit of a different approach to, like Dead of Winter, for example. Another example of like a standalone would be like the Horrified series, right? We have the first two, the Universal Monsters and the American Monsters. For those, we took it on like kind of a case-by-case basis based on, does each individual standalone offer a different, unique enough experience where we would want to feel like we're getting both of those in during the course of the year, right?
Right.
So for example, like Horrified, I think having the different map, the different monsters to play against, both of those are on the list out of the 135 that we need to cover.
Yes.
But on the flip side, something like The Crew, we have both the original version, Quest for Planet 9, as well as Mission Deep Sea. We're not going to make sure that we have to play both of those.
Yep, we just put The Crew on there as long as we play one of them.
The second one is kind of like a 2.0. It takes a lot of the original and just kind of bumps it up a notch. But the core experience remains very, very similar, right? So like for those, we're not worried about getting those two distinct different plays in.
Something where it's the same game essentially, but there are maybe different characters you can play and build into it. We don't have to play every single character. So as a different example, Villainous. We have almost all of the Disney Villainous
which are technically
boxes.
Standalone boxes that you could play one out of, right?
But we just said Villainous in general because every single character could be a separate game if we wanted to. So that one we did as one combined option.
With, again, caveat though, Star Wars Villainous, unique enough that we are going to count that as a separate play.
Right.
So we'll do one Disney Villainous, one Star Wars Villainous, but any characters within each of those.
Right. So that was a lot of like the initial cuts. The other thing that we had a little bit different, and honestly we just keep this listed separately, is we do have a couple of kid games and we just didn't include those ones. Those ones honestly will end up getting played probably anyway, because every time my niece and nephew are over here, we play board games with them.
These are something that we technically own, like they're boxes on the shelves,
Right.
but we don't really consider them a part of the collection.
Right.
Another thing where it's like, it's something that we own, but it's not going to count towards this, is any sort of like finished campaign or legacy games that we've already been through.
Yes.
So for example, last year we did Pandemic Season 1. Great experience. We've had that experience now. That's not counting towards it. It's just kind of a collector piece at this point. I think Ashley wants to make like a shadow box, like craft project out of it someday.
Yes, but we do have Pandemic Legacy Season 2, and that one we are in the middle of playing, so we will continue playing that.
Naturally.
Honestly, that one will probably just get finished this year for sure.
But it's a good time to talk about campaign games in general or legacy games, right? So if we haven't finished them though, we're not going to have to try to complete the entire campaign for something. You know, one single play of something like Stuffed Fables, for example. Any sort of campaign game like that, when just a single mission or scenario or however it might be defined for that game is going to count as a check mark towards the list.
And then one that we did leave on that was a legacy campaign that we actually have played before is Legacy of Isla-Nublar. And that one Ethan was arguing with me about.
Ashley just wants to play it again.
I do want to play it again.
You know, that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah, that one, you end up, at the end of it, you have an entire park of dinosaurs, essentially, and you can replay the end result as many times as you want, and that's one that Ethan said we probably won't go back to, and I would like to revisit it, so.
I didn't say never, I just said we did it recently enough, like, let's trim the numbers down a little further here.
Sure.
Anyway.
But a couple of them we left on just because the point is to play our shelves. We want to make sure that the games that we own are actually seeing the table, that they're getting played. With that said, we did accumulate a bunch of new games recently. So we are filming this right after Christmas time, which means that we just got a whole bunch of board games for Christmas, which makes it a little bit harder, but started talking about, okay, well, do we include new games that we might get in 2025? Ethan said, let's just not buy any new games in 2025, which I think is ridiculous and just not reasonable. But
play your shelves. That's the idea. Play your shelves.
Yeah. But as far as the challenge goes, the challenge is the board games that we own thus far. So nothing that gets added in 2025. We also kind of figure those will probably get played anyway because there'll be newer ones that we're probably really excited about playing. But the goal is to hit all of the ones that we currently own as of December 2024. So then another thing that we chatted about was solo games. So do you want to talk about solo games?
Sure. We don't have a ton of these. The question became, well, is that something where both of us need to individually play each solo game in order to count it? And we ultimately land on the side of like, no, if the point is to just make sure that the games we have are getting to the table, it's okay as long as one of us is getting to the table, right? A lot of those also are maybe geared towards like one of us as a player.
Right.
You know, Ashley just recently got Witchcraft and has been dying to try that.
Yes. Not
a game that super appeals to me. Maybe I'll change my tune once I like see her going through it a little bit. But it's fine for us to have a game like Witchcraft because one of us really likes it and is into it.
Yes.
And that's the person who can play it.
Right. I also have a lot of button shy games, and so I tend to play button shies, but Ethan really doesn't play button shies. And maybe we both will play it, but just as far as kind of checking it off the list.
Not a requirement, but it totally could happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so as we're going through this over the course of the year, you guys get to follow along. Because what we're planning is every month we'll do sort of a wrap-up video where we cover, you know, hopefully the like dozen or so games that we played over the course of that month and what we crossed off the list. And we'll give a little, maybe brief synopsis of each game, not really a full review or anything, more just like highlights of what our experience playing it was. You know, kind of talk about, did we play it with other people? Was it like a super fun experience? Was it a tight, close game? Did it exceed our expectations if it's something that we haven't pulled out in a couple of years, you know, or maybe are some of our like tried and true staples that we used to play not hitting as much anymore. You know, just our general impressions, and those will be videos that are in addition to our usual like weekly challenge releases.
Ethan and I love to rate our games too and kind of talk about how much we each like them. So something we are planning to do, and I don't know if we'll share it for every single game, but maybe once in a while we'll share how we rated those games too. So we have ratings of those games, but we do find sometimes that, you know, as time goes by, maybe you don't enjoy them quite as much anymore. Because you change as a gamer. Or sometimes you're just like, oh, this is such a good one. It's still such a great staple game that we just love owning, and this is why it's in our collection. So that's something else that we'll be doing as well that we might also bring into the videos and chat about.
And besides watching the videos that come out every month, you guys can actually follow along as well, because that spreadsheet that we created is going to be linked down below in the description. We're going to try to keep up with it, you know, kind of in real time as we're going. And so that way you can follow along with us and see how well we're doing or how bad we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I kind of want to talk about is, you know, the spirit behind an idea like this. I think a lot of board gamers out there, you know, we tend to accumulate games at a pretty brisk rate. And however everyone wants to enjoy this hobby, by all means, like, go for it. Personally, though, I think, like, yeah, if we have a game, I would like to see it getting played. And so I invite all of you as well to, you know, take on 2025 as a play your shelves kind of year. Maybe slow your acquisition a little bit. Maybe curb some of that FOMO that people feel about all the hot new games that are coming out. If you love that stuff, that's fine. You know, nothing wrong with it or whatever. But I do just think that there are some, you know, trends in this hobby, some things with the industry that makes it harder to get back to the games that you have loved for a long time. You know, and yes. I'm really looking forward to some things that we only played like once or twice maybe when we first got it, or things that just have fallen out of favor because they got overshadowed by other stuff that we got, having another chance to see the limelight, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, Ethan would love to just trim down our entire collection, really, but I am totally a collector. No, and that's not the goal of this. No. I have said this to him. We are not doing this with the intention of just culling our board games. I mean, I am totally a collector. I love, honestly, just looking at the games and doing other things with the games, which is why we started this channel, because we love doing different challenges and really making fun things out of the games, not just playing the games, but beyond that. Even just rearranging my shelves. I love doing that. It's so fun. We just rearranged it the other day again. So, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. But yeah, I think it's nice to have the opportunity to just sort of give some games some love that we haven't played in a while. So I'm very excited about that. Yeah.
And to make sure that all the crazy stuff that we did get for Christmas isn't sitting for too long, you know, without getting any attention.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to it. Hope you'll follow along on our journey.
So if you liked what you saw, please subscribe and join our community of fellow board gamers. Follow along with our challenge. Maybe take it on yourself.
Yes, game on.
Game on.
See you next time.